I thought it wouldn't be a problem to go to work as long as I did nothing wrong, as long as I identified myself, who I was. And clearly, it didn't matter if I was a citizen or if I was a veteran or if I identified who I was at all. It didn't matter to them.
George Retz, a 25-year-old Army veteran and United States citizen, describing his ICE arrest to Chris Hayes. He said Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents smashed his car window and yanked him out of his car before pepper spraying him during an immigration raid at a legal cannabis farm in California, where he worked security. He spent 3 days detained at a facility in downtown Los Angeles before being released without any charges. He said he received no medical care while in custody for the burns that he suffered from the pepper spray. The Trump administration is insistent that it's targeting only the most violent immigrants and people who are in this country illegally. Here's Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem in Nashville on Friday.
The Trump administration has specifically targeted the worst of the worst. The individuals that we are going after are those that are violent criminals, those that are breaking our laws, and those that have final removal orders.
The worst of the worst. Final removal orders. All sounds good. But according to data from ICE, arrests of non-criminal migrants have spiked. In Los Angeles, for example, 68% of the people ICE arrested had no criminal convictions whatsoever. In May, President Trump demanded that ICE pump up its arrests from 1,000 to 3,000 people a day, a task one career ICE official told The Atlantic was, quote, mission impossible. Impossible arrest quotas are exactly why so many people with no criminal records or those who are actually American citizens are being swept up in these raids. Allowing ICE agents to operate however they see fit, the administration argues, is key to its goal of ridding the country of undocumented immigrants, or the worst of the worst. In reality, the administration's neglect and disdain for due process is sending a signal to all of us that nobody's safe. Some of the first detainees being held at the new pop-up immigration detention center in the Florida Everglades filed a class action lawsuit alleging that their lawyers were turned away by guards and they, quote, effectively have no way to contest their detention, end quote. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has also received permission from the Trump administration to deputize members of the Florida National Guard Judge Advocate General Corps, which provides legal services for the Florida National Guard, to serve as immigration judges at the site. This would allow the so-called Alligator Alcatraz to be a one-stop shop for deportations, with federal and state officers essentially operating as judge, jury, and jail warden, with lawyers being turned away at the gate. How are any of these detainees going to defend themselves? And just how will they fare in front of these makeshift judges? Posting bond, another pillar of due process, also being attacked. In an internal memo leaked, first reported by the Washington Post this week, the acting director of ICE said undocumented immigrants are ineligible for bond hearings, saying instead that anyone who's detained should be kept, quote, for the duration of their removal proceedings, end quote. That can take months or years. There's a reason that posting a bond is a key part of due process. Unless you are deemed a public safety threat and accused of a nonviolent crime, you're made to stay in jail. If you're made to stay in jail before a trial, you're basically being punished pre-trial for a crime that you haven't been convicted of. And the conditions they're being held in are awful. NBC News has reported that cells are overcrowded, detainees are underfed, spoiled food is often served, people's dietary restrictions or medical regimens are simply ignored. Advocates for mass deportation can shrug away a lot of these lurid details with a quick appeal to the law. You don't want this to happen to you. Don't come here illegally. But it presumes a fact that without due process, we can't actually be sure of. In high school speech and debate, they call that begging the question. In law, we call it a violation of civil rights. For more on this, I'm joined by Dara Lind, senior fellow at the American Immigration Council. She spent more than a decade covering immigration policy for various outlets, and Lee Gelernt, the deputy director of Immigrants' Rights Project at the ACLU and an adjunct professor at Columbia Law School. He argued in court against the first Trump administration's family separation policy and asylum bans. Welcome to both of you for this important conversation. Dara, let me start with you. This is a multi-pronged attack on due process. In fact, we've left the part about immigration. Like, it's not even about immigration at this point. It's about a whole bunch of people whose multiple layers of protection under the law are being ignored.
Absolutely, although it still kind of is about immigration because we've always had a slightly looser sense of what due process is
Sure.
necessary in the immigration system than in the criminal legal system. So, for example, bond hearings, great example of this. In criminal law, you are presumed to be not a public safety threat and so can be released on bond unless the government shows you are. It's the other way around. It's traditionally been the other way around in immigration court. The government gets the benefit of the doubt on that. So what they're doing is pushing on the soft parts of a system that's always been willing to turn something of a blind eye. But at the same time, you're totally right, Ali. The law does two things. It requires people to do some things or the government will punish them. And it puts restrictions on the government for what constitutes a proper way of going after people. The Trump administration is using the former to totally ignore the latter and saying that the law doesn't really bind it at all.
But the distinction you make is important about what we think about what immigrants are due in terms of process versus citizens. Rumeysa Ozturk, she was on a student visa. She was detained by ICE. We've all seen the video of her detention. She was held in an ICE facility in Louisiana from March to May. She wrote an essay chronicling her experience. She was a tough student. She chronicled her experience for Vanity Fair. And this part of what her experience seems to be common. Medical care is lacking. She wrote, I've had asthma for several years, but I've never suffered from it like I did in detention. During my 45 days there, I was kept in damp, dusty, overcrowded conditions with poor air and triggers that made my asthma significantly worse. Once, when I suffered a severe asthma attack, the officers did not respond until many women began banging on the windows to get their attention. One time, my friend had a severe allergic reaction. Her entire eye became red and itchy. In a desperate attempt to assist her, I used black tea bags on her eyelids to try to reduce the swelling. This kind of improvisation was common. Our requests would often go unanswered for weeks, and according to my friends, sometimes even months. Dara, we probably shouldn't, as a society, accept that kind of neglect and treatment of hardened criminals, violent criminals, but these aren't.
And the thing is that ICE detention has never exactly been it's never been a system that's going to win awards for responsiveness or for proactive healthcare, right? There have been complaints under every administration going back to, the creation of ICE as a separate agency in the 2000s. But what the administration is doing is it's really basic logistics, right? If you have more people who you're putting into detention and you're changing the rules so that they can never get out of detention, you're going to have more and more people put into a finite number of facilities. It's very, very difficult to scale up capacity. It's very, very difficult to scale up staffing. And especially if you don't care quite as much about maintaining a ratio of, certified healthcare providers to detainees, that's going to be what falls by the wayside. And all of these problems that have never really been solved in detention are going to reach crisis levels.
Lee, can you talk to me about this concept of the Florida National Guard JAG lawyers being trained as immigration judges? This is important because many of us have often said if your problem is the immigration process, we actually need more judges in this country. This doesn't seem to be how I thought this was going to go. The plan's not in motion yet. The Florida National Guard has confirmed to us, but the Miami Herald is reporting that these judge advocate general lawyers would get about 6 weeks of training and then they'd be immigration judges.
Yeah, so I think we're going to have to see more details about it, but you're absolutely right. We can't just put anybody in as a judge, especially if they're also the ones keeping lawyers from access. Right now, we can't get in to see these people. They need lawyers. You talked about due process in the beginning. That's part and parcel of due process. And then all of a sudden, we're going to have the people, the unit that's guarding the facility be judges. I think we all need to be very worried about it. And to Dara's point at the beginning, there's, of course, a difference between immigration and criminal law. But still, I think people need to remember that immigrants are entitled to due process. The Supreme Court just reaffirmed this. And it goes beyond just worrying about immigrants not getting due process. We all need to be concerned if a basic of our country, this is what separates our country is due process. We saw the people removed under the Alien Enemies Act just being flown there with zero due process. They're contesting that they're gang members, and yet they got no due process. And I think that's why we saw people from both sides of the aisle react. The notion that we're not going to have due process in this country is very scary.
Dara, you did mention about ICE and the size of ICE. Obviously, ICE was one of the biggest beneficiaries of this massive reconciliation bill that the president just signed on July 4th. I want to read from a Wall Street Journal report on how they are spending their cash infusion. Quote, so far, the plans have given priority to erecting thousands of tents or hardened, soft-sided facilities as quickly as possible to expand detention capacity quickly at U.S. military bases and adjoining bricks-and-mortar ICE jails, the documents show. The heavy reliance on temporary facilities has created internal tensions as some administration officials and outside Republican allies warn that detaining immigrants long-term in flimsy structures could prove disastrous, particularly in locations prone to flooding or hurricanes. I'm picking up on your point where you said this was never the gold standard for dealing with detention of immigrants. But those pictures coming out of Florida, they get hurricanes there. These are I don't know what hard-sided soft tents are, but it's not a sturdy structure.
We've seen a tendency to really surge kind of short-term capacity for detention. And this it's more expensive than doing government contracting on a more traditional timeline. It's more prone to corruption. We've seen that in the past, but it looks good, right? It looks like you're being responsive to an emergent need. This isn't an emergent need. This is the Trump administration putting what it intends to be a pillar of 4 years of policy. And there's obviously an enormous humanitarian cost, but there are also a lot of questions about how they intend to sustain this level of funding and why it is being done as tents rather than, I don't think anyone anticipates Alligator Alcatraz is not going to be operational in 4 years in the Trump administration. So why are we doing this as if it's something that's going to be torn down in 6 weeks? Why is it so flimsy? Why is it being done with so little accountability?